Good news, everyone! It turns out that the war that never started is now officially over. Looking like there is not going to be an invasion of Ukraine by the Russians, and the Americans have changed their tune quite dramatically today in a speech that Biden gave for about 10 minutes. I'm Stuart Hooper, a lecturer in political science and PhD researcher, coming at these political problems not from the left, not from the right, but from a position of right versus wrong, and trying to look critically into what is really going on in the world. So I think in order to do that, we need to take a look at where we've been over the weekend to where we are today. And the difference is rather dramatic, albeit separated by just a few days. So let's take a look at what has happened. So we'll start off with this tweet from Melinda Haring, the Deputy Director of the Atlantic Council, which functions as a think tank, which is really the intellectual and strategic brain of NATO itself. She was tweeting just on Friday, Putin has big weekend plans in Ukraine. Number one, he's going to cut the power and the heat, knock out the Ukrainian Navy and Air Force, kill the General Staff, and hit them with a cyber attack. And yes, that is only step one. There are many more dastardly deeds which Putin supposedly had planned for this week. Number two, then he's going to install a pro-Russian president. And then number three, he will resort to a full-scale military invasion if Ukraine doesn't give in. So if we take a look at where we are today, we can see that this tweet has not aged like a fine wine, but in fact has kind of gone the way of sour milk. Russian troops head back to their permanent bases after successfully finishing military drills. Russian Ministry of Defense announces. Now look, I am a political scientist by profession. It's kind of in our job description to try to make predictions about what might happen and provide explanations of why that is. But there are predictions, and then there are predictions. And when they are based upon Western intelligence that has sold us all sorts of lies, such as missiles that can hit London from Iraq in 45 minutes, and masses of weapons of mass destruction throughout Iraq ready to destroy the world, you really have to stop and think critically. And clearly, that's not what happened here. But I'm not so much arguing that these were mistaken predictions, so much as they were efforts to try to confer benefits to the military-industrial complex, to increase and improve the position of the transnational techno-military empire that we call NATO. And whenever this issue has been discussed in mainstream Western media, the only term that you ever hear is Ukraine's border, that this mass of Russian troops has been put on Ukraine's border. They never mention that this is also Russia's border, and those troops are within Russia. All of the rhetoric, everything that was built up around this whole situation is trying to treat you like a moron. These people really have zero respect for you whatsoever. And they expect you to keep buying into these lies, to keep accepting constant wars and conflicts that are waged and fought and bled and died for, that are absolutely of no benefit to us as citizens of the Western world. This ultimately really has to change, and this is one of the central focuses of my work in the academic world and on this channel here. So what have we now shifted to? Well, Biden, like I mentioned, he gave a 10-minute speech today, February the 15th, and the rhetoric has now shifted entirely. the Russians heading back to their permanent military bases, no longer conducting their operations in Western Russia. Biden's rhetoric was now all about diplomacy and the importance of talking to the other side. And he even went as far to say that we do not hate the Russian people, that we do not want to harm the Russian people. And then Jen Psaki, his press secretary, said today, also in a conference that she gave immediately after this speech, we're never going to pressure Ukraine to join NATO. So we have a complete flipping of the script. Now that what Russia was doing with inside Russian borders can really no longer be construed to align with the interests and the goals of NATO. This is completely disingenuous. This is one of the most important issues that we have to deal with as citizens of the Western world, this military-industrial complex. And we have to push back against these wars and against these conflicts. It's the only way that we have a chance of ensuring the survival of democracy, if you really boil this down to what it's really all about. Could this all be some dramatic ruse by the Russians to make Ukraine think that it's withdrawing its forces from the border, only to launch some kind of sneak attack? Potentially. If we look at a Machiavellian worldview, yes, that could be what Russia is trying to do. Would I bet that that's going to happen? Would I bet anything that that's going to happen? Absolutely not. So please subscribe if you are new to my channel. Be sure to hit that notification bell. You can follow me on other platforms at the links below. I will continue to be covering this Ukraine crisis if there are any new developments, which I'm sure it's possible that there will be, particularly in the coming days and weeks before we really have a chance to test if this is actually properly settled down. And otherwise, we'll keep our eye on the rest of the world. And we'll be continuing to ask the question, who really benefits from what is really going on in the world? Who is really driving the world in a certain direction? What are they trying to achieve? And is it in any of our interests? Thank you guys for watching, and I'll be back with more videos really soon.